call the meeting to order, January 2nd, 2018, 9 a.m., Tax Committee meeting. Amanda, would you call the roll, please?
McFadden?
Here.
Awful? Here. Whitlow?
Here.
Sitnop?
Here. I'd like a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passed. Okay, let's look over the claims and see if you have any questions. Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve the claims and send them to County Board for approval? And we will have to have a separate one for a couple here, but for the majority of them here, is there a motion? Second. Okay. Any discussion? If not, roll call for these.
McFadden?
Yes.
Awful? Yes. Whitlow?
Yes.
Sitnop?
Yes. Motion carried. There's a couple from animal control that Dr. Yusuf was having computer problems, so they're a little late. They're listed. I can find them here. On the one says Watsika Animal Hospital, there's a $15.95 listed there. And then we have also an $1,873.56 for the animal control warden for mileage, pickups, that kind of thing. So, anyone want to pass those around, take a look at it?
Those are the same things you have copies of. I have a
Oh,
copy
okay.
already on your desk.
Does
separate ones for 1873-56 to the Animal Control Warden and 1595 to the Animal, once again, Animal Hospital. So, any discussion? Not, roll call, please.
McTaggart?
Yes.
Alter? Yes. Whitlow? Slipknot?
Yes. Okay, let's move on to discussion points from the committee members. We did get something from Lota Township Assessor. You all got that, didn't you? That letter. Bob, do you know what this means?
Do I know what it means?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
And can you explain it to us?
Well, I assume you're talking about the 109 Pima Lane property? She sent several letters to you, Marvin. I mentioned
Yeah, the ones that we all,
that one.
the ones we got letters from.
Okay. Just the ones or the one? All of them?
Speak to the whole thing.
Okay. Back in 2010, a couple on Pima Lane got a building permit issued by Planning and Zoning over across the hall, and they built a new house, and then the assessor just picked it up this year, and through the township, they requested it be put on for 17, payable 18, which is not a problem, we can do that. And then he wrote a bunch of stuff in there about occupancy permits and back and forth about who's responsible for notifying him. So, to give you a brief history, back when Gloria ran the zoning department, she would obviously, as a courtesy to the assessment side, would give us copies of all the building permits issued in the county, and then and then of course, when they had them, they would send us down copies of the occupancy permits when they were issued. Obviously, history tells us that not every property was issued an occupancy permit for whatever reason, but the properties were completed. So, in the past, other assessors, myself included when I came in 06, if there was some improvement that was there, and even though there wasn't an occupancy permit issued, we put it on the tax rolls. This property was I looked at the planning and zoning inspection file. It was issued, it had a final construction inspection in August of 11, but it did not have a final electrical or a final plumbing, and there was no documentation in the file to say why those weren't completed. Maybe Mel was sick. Obviously, if you haven't heard, Mel has passed away over the holiday season. And Huck Marshall, I don't know, but there was no documentation. I can't answer why they didn't do finals on it or not. Fact remains, the assessor was aware that there was a permit issued in 10 because it's on his sheet that we give the assessors every January when we have our assessors meeting. It's their jurisdiction to know what's there and what's completed, what isn't. They do not officially need an occupancy permit to pick a parcel up. It's their jurisdiction to assess property that is in their determination completed. If the property owners feel that it's not completed, then obviously there's discussion and a process to go through to decide if it's a partial assessment, blah, blah. So that property technically, Bates did a final inspection in August of 2011, so that house was probably moved into sometime in the late summer of 2011, and it's been occupied ever since. It's his jurisdiction. He drives around it every day. He knows what's there, what isn't there, and he seems to want to blame the lack of occupancy permit for not doing his job, and that's all. That's my response to that. I picked up lots of property. There's no permits or occupancy permits issued on farm property because farmers aren't required to pay for a building permit. So there's no fees to cover inspections, so we don't require inspections on pole buildings and grain bins, that kind of thing. So there's never an occupancy permit issued on any of those, and all those improvements get picked up by the assessor without, So It's a he said, she said kind of thing, but that property's been occupied since probably late 2011, and it's 2017. And he's been the assessor for that jurisdiction that whole length of time, so. And he answers to the taxpayers of Lota Township, not to this committee. He's an elected official. He does have some answers to the township trustees and supervisor, but he doesn't even answer to me. I can only give direction and advice, and so we are going to put it on through the board review, so it gets on for sure for 7 payable 18. And then going forward from that, if Lota Township pushes to want to have that back taxes collected for those, you can go back 5 years on back taxes for omitted property. In my opinion, it doesn't fall under that category because, I mean, they got the proper permit initially. Was there an occupancy permit issued? No. But is it being lived in? Common sense tells me that property should be on the tax rolls if it's your jurisdiction. So that would end up in the court system, and my humble opinion, I'm not an attorney, but I would say, if I was asked to testify, I would say that the property owners got their permit, they ordered inspections, there's no documentation to say why the final plumbing and electrical wasn't done, so there's nothing to support one way or the other. It's occupied, it should be put on the tax rolls when it was in 12 and it wasn't. To me, that falls on the township assessor, and that's the way I would testify in court. So the idea of going back 4 years for back taxes, to me, would be a futile process and unnecessary, but I am not the taxing bodies. That's just my opinion. And going forward, we try to keep up on occupancy permits the best we can. Obviously, it's just basically me and a little help from one of my staff members trying to follow up on all those. We eventually get there, but then for me as an assessor, if I see something, I know my jurisdiction. I drive around this county all the time. When I see something that doesn't look like I've seen it before, I always go back here and check, see if it's on the tax rolls. If it is, great. If it's not, I follow up, and I've picked up many properties in other jurisdictions strictly because it hasn't been picked up before, and I'll continue to do that. As far as the billboards are concerned, 2 years ago, the assessor put on the billboards at an assessment. We put them on through his assessment work. The property owners fought the assessment on the billboards. The Board of Review ruled in the property owner's favor, saying they were never assessed in the past. Other jurisdictions along Interstate 57 don't assess billboards per se. So they made the determination to remove the township, and the assessor humbly disagreed. They have that right, but Board of Review does have assessment authority, so they made that determination. He has since going to put them back on again. He has that right to do that. We will put them back on, and I assume the property owner will want to fight that again. Then it's going to be between the township assessor, Lota Township, and the property owners. They'll have to fight that at PTAB because the Board of Review will just leave it. Will deny their request to remove the assessment. Obviously, it's a difference of opinion between the township assessor and the property owner. So let's let the legal process take its course and let that be solved that way. And then there'll be a ruling on those billboards. And if the PTAB rules in favor of the property owner, then it'll never be an issue again. If the PTAB rules in favor of Lota Township, then we know that we need to start assessing them going forward, and we will. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, and did you get another one too? There's a tentative decision in the works too in Lota Township that I'm reviewing right now. I will review the tentative decision, and if I have any advice to give to the Board of Review, I will give it. And because that decision is not final yet, it's in a tentative stage, and I was going to note that in my report. So going forward. So.
Okay. Is there any action that we need to take?
So, Board of Review will put those properties on the roll, If it comes down to back taxes, it'll be up to, obviously, you as a tax committee through the county board could request to have the back taxes, go after the back taxes on that property. I gave you my opinion what might happen. I'm not saying it would happen, but that's how I would testify if I was put on a stand. Remember back in '06 when I don't know, none of you were here probably in '06 when I was hired. There was a big problem in Logan Township for a lot of houses on Lake Iroquois. Lisa can remember. And my first assignment from the tax committee was go down there and pick all those properties up. And at that time, the tax committee and the county board decided not to go after. They just wanted them on the rolls and not go back and try to fight that fight in the court system. But that was, different time, different issue, different committee. Doga Township has the right, school district, PBL has the right to go after, they can request to go back. I can't initiate that. I can just make sure it gets on the tax rolls going forward and go from there.
Okay. Discussion from committee members. Anything you want to bring up? Talk about this more? No? Okay. Well, we'll move on to reports from the departments. So, Bob, you're warmed up.
Board review is making tentative decisions right now. Obviously, the complaint time has passed. It was at the end of December. So they're making their tentative decisions. We will process them. We will send out notices on those decisions coming up, and then set up final hearings, and then we'll move to get the board closed out and moving forward. That's it.
Thank you.
Legislatively, everything's pretty quiet because everybody's home.
Lisa, what do you have?
In elections, we're working on getting the ballot set up in preparation for, to print ballots. Early voting starts on February 8th, and military ballots have to be sent out even earlier than that. And this week, we're going to start the Statement of Economic Interest process. We send out approximately 180 letters to the clerks of all the units of government requesting their list of everyone in their unit that's required to file the Statement of Economic Interest. So let the fun begin.
Okay.
That's it.
Anita, do you have anything to add? Okay. Well, we should move on to animal control. Dr. Yusuf, what do you have?
So we received 3 bats, we sent them to the lab, all of them came back negative. We picked up like 6 dogs, we investigated 2 dogs bites, 1 cat bite, and everything is going fine. I just want to say something else good, positive, we installed, that's why the report came late, because we installed 16 security camera, very high technology camera, motion detection, night vision, inside and outside the clinic, so we can watch the animals 24 hours, all the cages, all the runs, everything. So this is, I think it's a plus, for the animal.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, it's motion detection, so if any dog gets loose by any means, we can see the camera, even if I'm somewhere else, far away from the clinic, my device, like phone or iPad, will give me warning, like there's detection or motion inside the clinic, so I can see it and then we can act accordingly. So.
Okay. Sounds like a good deal. Okay. Any questions of Dr. Yusuf? Okay. Next item on the agenda, discussion of county-owned properties in the city of Watseka. There are some properties here in Watseka that have gone on the tax sale and have not been purchased. The city of Watseka apparently has to keep them up, mow them, maintain them, whatever. The city of Watseka apparently would like to have the county give them the properties because they're usually lots that really nobody wants. They're often in floodplain areas, that kind of thing. So the city of Watseka would like the county to give them the lots. They would attempt to sell them or whatever to adjacent property owners so that they would be back on the tax roll and the city wouldn't have to maintain them. But anyway, that's what the idea is. Lisa, do you have anything to add on this?
I worked with, who's the code officer?
Tom Webster.
Tom, on Friday. He had asked me on Thursday if I could get a list of the properties that Ballinger has holding for the county. And so Mike wasn't in, I talked to Katie from his office, and she sent me a list of all the properties that had gone to the auction, and and it was just PIN numbers. But using our GIS system was really cool. You can just go in and put in the PIN number, and I can identify which ones were in Watsika.
Oh,
So I did that. It only took me a couple hours to do that. And there were I believe there were only 8 parcels that were identified as within Belmont or Middleport Township, and all of those weren't even in town. And this morning I talked to Brian, and she thinks that possibly 6 or 7 of the 8 actually sold at the auction. They may be pending sales because sometimes they take a little while. The potential buyers need to have, they're advised to have title work done to make sure that there's a clear title before they pay. So not all payments have been made, and that's a normal process. So I don't think that there are very many. I don't know exactly, but I think that there's only maybe 1 or 2 properties that this is even, that the trustee has. Tom was also wondering about other tax buyers and could he get a list, which he certainly can. But other tax buyers work differently. When they go to court and they receive a tax deed on a property, they generally sell, they don't want the property, they want to sell the property, and they work through a realtor. So that's completely different. I don't think there's really a whole lot. I think there's far fewer than what they think. But I'll send Mike an email today, see if I can get a hold of him to find out if the ones that Brian has on her list as having been sold look like they're going to follow through, so I worked with Tom back and forth on the phone and email on Friday, and he said he was very appreciative of the list and everything. He said don't do anything else with it right now.
Okay.
So it's kind of just sitting there. If you do give it to them, I think Ballinger's has to make their money, so I think there still has to be some kind of a fee that's paid.
Yeah.
But it's minimal.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and that's all I know about it, so.
Yeah.
Give you some more background. Tom's called me several times about properties like this and who's going to maintain them. The problem is tax sale process to get a tax deed takes 3 to 4 years. And these properties sit idle, abandoned, they're junk, and nobody wants. Sometimes you get a nice neighbor that mows the grass every week or so because they don't want to reflect on them. They do it as a courtesy. They don't do it. They're not required to do it. Or the city goes in. They have some ideas what they want some properties to look like, so they mow them and they put liens accordingly. Well, at one point, Tom was thinking that the county should be going out and mowing all these properties because they're reliable, because they're responsible. We're not. Everybody that's listed on that tax bill is liable and responsible for that property until it goes to tax sale and is sold. It goes to tax deed and title is transferred. So, if the city of, in my opinion, if the city of Watsika is upset about tall grass, they have every right to go in and mow it and put a lien on the property. The county doesn't have that in their budget. They don't have lawnmowers. I don't think they're going to send out the people they hire to mow our ground out running around Watsika mowing various lots in town, not knowing what's in the grass. I wouldn't think they would even want to do that as far as an independent contractor. So the 3-year process is where the problem is as far as who maintains them, who's responsible for maintaining them, so forth and so on. and that's a legal issue to me, but everybody on that tax bill is ultimately responsible in some degree because they have a stake in it, because there are, the taxes that aren't being paid are, every taxing district has some liability there, vested interest. So it's just because the trustee buys the taxes because all the tax buyers don't want any part of the property because they've gone out and looked at it and they know how bad it is, or it's in the floodplain, then even though the trustee is the tax buyer, they're not the owner. And they,
They're just acting as a fiduciary for all the taxing
right.
bodies.
So when the city says, well, the county's responsible, I don't believe that. You can check with Jim Devine on that issue, but in my opinion again, the county is not totally, they have some interest in it because they are a taxing body on that property, but so is the school, so is the city, and so forth. So we, just as a certain, obviously that's what we do. We try to get rid of those properties as quick as we can, get tax deed to them. Obviously the tax buyers don't want them because they're obviously where they're located, what's on it. I can take you to a couple of them houses. I wouldn't want to buy those taxes either. But, the city wants to maintain the yards, which is fine. But at one point, I think Lisa could vouch, Tom was saying the county was liable, and we're not. Partially, probably, but so is the city, so is the school district. So we're just, the trustee gets the taxes because nobody else wants them, and it sits in that 3-year limbo stage where, grass can grow pretty high in 3 years.
Well, and until the county goes to court and gets the tax deed, those properties still belong to the owner of the property.
For several years.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what happens then if it's a decrepit house that really isn't livable anymore, and it finally comes back to the county owns it? Then what happens then? Who demolishes it? What cleans it up? Is there anybody responsible?
Well,
I believe that information that I gave you Thursday, that sheet, kind of shows that it's never been upheld in court that the county is responsible or liable for it.
Okay.
But
probably the first time, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
obviously the city has a demolition budget. They've been using it. We don't.
Yeah.
Obviously it's been talked about at the county level because we do have some properties in the rural areas that could be or should be cleaned up, but that's a
Comes back to money.
budget and liability issue.
Mr. Scherer, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Well, I think that the city, and particularly the mayor, is interested in doing something about the properties that are within the city itself. Not only just the mowing of them, but also just the fact that they are a problem being the way they are. And so that's where a lot of this is coming from. But getting the facts assembled as to who owns the properties, who's responsible, what process might be followed in accomplishing what the mayor would like, all of those things, I think is where we're at in this whole matter right now. I don't believe the county would stand in the way of giving the properties to the city. If that puts them in a much better condition and state than they are right now. So it's a matter of gathering the facts. I think right now I haven't found anybody that's opposed to what the mayor's basic intentions are. And I think it's just a matter of, Bob is pointing out the time element. We've got that to deal with. We've got the element of the pathway to be followed in order to get this all accomplished. So that's kind of where this is at.
Okay. Well, we probably don't need to do anything more or discuss it any longer unless someone would like to. Okay, let's move on. Is there any old business we need to discuss? If none, is there any new business? Yes.
I see Chris wasn't here today. I was wanting to talk to him about it, but I still need to bring it up. I had a taxpayer come to me with a complaint about the very first snow that we had, which was just a dusting. And he noticed that there was, they were using salt out here and the courthouse for just a small amount of dusting. And he had a complaint about that it cost the taxpayers money to use the salt.
Okay. And that might better be discussed in maintenance, you suppose?
Maintenance.
Management.
On the other hand, if we didn't put down anything, when something happened, then we'd really have a problem. So,
Yeah.
I'm just being the
yeah,
voice.
correct. I understand that. I understand that.
No way to win every time. Okay. Any more new business? Motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?